Harihi Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. A warm welcome to session 71 of Gita for Inner Freedom and Transformation. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Gururbrahma Gururvishnuhu Gururdevo Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namaste, friends. A warm welcome to the first session of chapter 13, titled kshetrajna vibhaga yoga. We are now entering the third and final shatkam of the Bhagavad Gita. In the first shatkam, we learned about our true nature. In the second, we learned about God. And now, in the final shatkam, Lord Krishna gives us essential traits that we can develop so that we can assimilate all that we have learned in the first two shatkams. The chapter begins on a very, very lofty note. And our speakers for today are Srimati Sharmila, Srimati Triveni, Srimati Smita Pai, and Dr. Deepak Kamath. The session will be anchored by Dr. Sundar, who brings in his vast experience and knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita to bring out the best of this chapter. Over to you, Dr. Sundar, sir.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. So we have completed the Prathama and Madhyama Shatakam and making an entry to the Charama Shatakam or Antima Shatakam. We are all familiar with this 3x3 matrix. If the Prathama and Madhyama Shatakam dealt with the sadhana of karma and upasana yoga, this Shatakam shall deal with the sadhana of jnana yoga. If the Prathama and Madhyama Shatakam revealed the Jiva and Ishwar Swarupam, this Antima Shatakam shall reveal through Bhaga, Tyaga, Lakshana, the essential nature of Jiva and the essential nature of Ishvara as being one, which is the Jivatma, paramatma, aikyam. The Shatakams also dealt with Prayatna, Ishvara, Anugraha, and this Shatakam deals with the Sadguna in the later chapters. Interestingly, this kind of a categorization is not there in Shankara Bhashyam. We shall see soon why it is so, but subsequent acharyas have found value in this kind of a categorization, as is put up here by masters like Anandagiri and Madhusudana Saraswati. So the reason why Adi Shankaracharya didn't perhaps make such categorization is there in the introduction he makes for the 13th chapter, where he draws a link to not only the preceding 12th chapter, but also to the 7th chapter. So as the title of this chapter goes, this chapter is about matter and consciousness. A similar reference was made in the 7th chapter itself. Kshetram is similar to aparaprakriti, and kshetrajna. About these two terms we shall see in a lot of detail in this and subsequent classes. So kshetrajna is the paraprakriti of the 7th chapter. The unique thing about this chapter is the presence of the profound Mahavakya in the initial verses itself, as we shall see in this class. And Adi Shankaracharya points out that there is tucked and hidden within the initial verses of the 7th chapter itself, the similar Mahavakya. So Mahavakya brings about a aikyam between Jivatma and Paramatma, as we have already seen. So Shankaracharya feels that this aikyam is already there in the Pratama Shatakam. Therefore, he doesn't make such categorization. Now, these two verses of the 7th chapter described the Paraprakriti relating to Kshetram and Aparaprakriti and Paraprakriti relating to Kshetrajna. So you can see there Lord Krishna saying that other than the Apara Prakriti, there is a Anyam Prakriti, and that is, may you know, Vidhi, as me, as Para Prakriti. And immediately after that is this word Jiva Bhutam. So that Para Prakriti, which is my true nature, Lord Krishna says, is also the core essence of Jiva. Viddhime Param Jiva Bhutam. So there is the Mahavakya. So that is the link he does to the 7th chapter. Pujya Swami Paramatmananda ji also brings about in the introduction of Adi Shankaracharya to 13th chapter, the link he does to the 12th chapter. The later verses of the 12th chapter describes those people who do Nididhyasanam as Akshara Upasakas. They attain a lot of values, and the values are described in these verses. And in the 14th and the 19th verse, there are two words, Dhrida Nishchaya. So there is conviction to firm knowledge. And such a person is called Sthiramatihi. So Pujya Swamiji asked this question, Dhrida Nishchaya, about what? Sthiramatihi, regarding what? Because the Madhyama Shatakam is a gradual journey from Eka to Vishwarupa Ishvara. So which form of Ishvara is the Dhrida Nishchaya Sthiramati about? Is it about Ekarupa, Vishwarupa, or Arupa? So the answer lies in this chapter, that the references made there were about Arupa Ishvara, which is going to be dealt with a lot more detail in this 13th chapter. The brief of the 7th chapter, although the both matter and conscious principles were introduced, the brief of that chapter was mainly about the gradual divinization of this world through Ekarupa and Vishwarupa Ishvara Bhakti, so that our ragadveshas reduce and we become prepared for Arupa Ishvara. So while that was the brief in the 7th chapter, now in the 13th chapter, as Madam put, there are lofty high peaks of the Himalaya, the snow-clad peaks of the Himalaya, that the Bhagavad Gita takes us through the core essence, the Tattvaryam of Advaita Vedanta, that we are going to reach now, especially the 13th, 14th, and the 15 chapters. So, Pujya Swamiji at the end of each chapter has summary chapters where you can see the core topics in the chapter. So here the chapter is thus divided into 6 portions, 2 of which we are going to see in today's class, being the introduction, where Arjuna seeks clarification regarding 6 technical terms, and the first 2 of those terms, kshetra and kshetrajna. In the subsequent classes, the other 4 topics of this chapter being Jnanam, Neyam, Purusha Prakriti, and Jnana Sadhanani and Jnana Phalam shall be brought about. Interestingly, the word Jnanam in the 13th chapter has specific meaning, while it means knowledge, specifically Atma Jnanam elsewhere. Here the reference is to spiritual friendly values which make such a spiritual Atma Jnanam a walkover. So the focus is on such spiritual friendly values which can nurture Jnanam. This first shloka, which is described as Arjuna Uvacha, is not there in the earlier editions of the Gita, like Shankara Bhashyam by Adi Shankaracharya doesn't have this verse. It is said that this is added later, and there is a reference made to Puja Madhusudana Saraswati that he made a addition to this. Remember that he also gave us the Dhyana shlokas. So in our session of the gift, where the focus has been on Moolam as well as Bhashyam, the speaker shall take up the verses as is there in the Bhashyam. And in this introduction, I shall present this verse. So Arjuna says, O Keshava. So this is Sambodhana. And in the simplest form, the shloka is Aham etad veditum ichchami. So Aham is added, supplied as Adhyahara. I wish to know regarding this. I desire to know about this. So, etad, what is this etad? What is this? So, there are 6 paribhasha shabda or technical terms that Arjuna is bringing about, which is Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Jnanam, and Nyayam. So the original work starts off by Arjuna picking on Kshetram, one of these 6 terms, and explaining. And Madhusudana Saraswati in his Bhashyam brought about this verse to bring a kind of a context to the entire chapter as Arjuna asking about these terms. So in these terms, we see in bold Purusha, Kshetrajna, and Nyayam roughly relate to the consciousness principle, the Chaitanya Tattva, whereas Prakriti and Kshetram refer to the matter, the Achetana Tattva. And then there is Jnanam with a special meaning in this chapter, as I already described. With this background, I invite Sharmila Madam to please present this first verse. Over to you, Madam.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Verse 13.1. In this verse, Shri Krishna discriminates between Kshetram, the body, and Kshetrajna, the consciousness principle. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Iddam Shariram Kaunteya Kshetram Ityabhidiyate Itadyo Veti Tam Prahu Kshetrajna Iti Tadvidaha. Lord Krishna said, O Arjuna, this body is known as Kshetram. There is a conscious principle which knows this body. Wise men declare that knower principle to be Kshetrajna. Shri Shankaracharya has given several meanings for the word Kshetram. Swami Paramatma Nandaji picks the 2 most beautiful and relevant meanings and elaborates on them. Next slide, please. The first meaning of Kshetram is body or Shariram or Deha. The meaning of Kshi means that which integrates. Shariram means decay and destruction. Deha means burnt, afflicted, or tormented by the 3 tapas. The threefold tapas or sorrows experienced by the body are Adi Bhautik, caused by external environment, Adhyatmik, caused by internal environment, and Adi Daivik, caused by nature. The body is constantly afflicted by the threefold tapas while we are living, and at death it is consumed by the fire of cremation. Next slide, please. The second meaning of Kshetram is agricultural land or field. When we have to convert seeds into plants, we find that we need an intermediary field or medium. In the same way, Papa and Punya Karma from our past births are like seeds. They also need a medium to fructify into Karma Phalam, which is Sukham and Dukkam. Hence, the body is required to experience Karma Phalam. In the absence of this body, Punya and Papa will remain and can never become Sukham and Dukkam. So what is the consequence of this? As long as we cannot exhaust our karmas, we can never get liberated. Next slide, please. Kshetram refers not only to the body, but also to the mind and the world we experience. Shri Krishna focuses on the body because we have a very deep identification with it. He wants us to understand that body is an object of experience like the world we experience. Kshetram is the object of experience and the matter principle and is constantly changing. Next slide, please. So what is the role of the body-mind complex? The BMC is the one who saves the jiva from samsara. Liberation can only be attained through the body and the mind. This BMC is required for us to think, know, and claim that I am Brahman. Next slide, please. The second word is kshetrajna, that which illumines the kshetram. The body is an inert principle, but we experience the body as a sentient being. So we can infer that a consciousness principle that pervades the body is there, and that is called kshetrajna. So what is the function of kshetrajna? The first one is that it pervades the body to make it sentient. The second is that it is the knower of the body. This spiritual principle is called consciousness or kshetrajna. Kshetrajna is independent, all-pervading, eternal, unchanging, and it is a consciousness principle. Next slide, please. So what is reflected consciousness or chidabhasa? When the consciousness enlivens the body, the reflection of original consciousness is formed in the body-mind complex. That reflection is called reflected consciousness. We'll call it RC. And it's also called Pratibimba Chaitanya or Chidabhasa. And this RC is unique to the body-mind complex. While inert objects have only one consciousness, that's the original consciousness, living beings have both the OC and the RC. Next slide, please. So who's the knower of the body, the OC or the RC? It is the pair OC plus RC, which is the knower. OC cannot know because we know this from inert objects. RC alone cannot know because we know RC cannot even exist without OC. It is the pair of RC plus OC that is the knower. Based on the context, we refer to it as OC or RC, and we call Chidabhasa Pramata and Chit as Sakshi Chaitanya. Next slide, please. In conclusion, Sri Krishna differentiates between Kshetram, the matter principle, and Kshetrajna, the consciousness principle. And Lord Krishna focuses on the body-mind complex as it is absolutely required to attain moksha. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. That was an elaborate discussion and a lot of beautiful slides to explain the concepts here. So the profoundness of this chapter starts straight away with the first verse. So the first verse starts off with Viveka between the Atma and Anatma Tattvam. It starts with Atmanatma Viveka straight away. Everything is explained. Just for re-emphasis, some important things that Adi Shankaracharya brings about in this Bhashyam. So, etat yah veti tat kshetrajna. Who knows the kshetram, which has been already referred to as shariram in this verse, is kshetrajna. So, Shankaracharya raises the question, there are two awareing principles, two knowing principles. So, is the reference of kshetrajna to chit or chidabhasa? So madam has already explained. Just one point, the context that she was mentioning actually comes about in the next verse where sarva kshetrekshu, in all kshetras, that means in all sharirams, Lord Krishna emphatically says that he is the same kshetrajna. Now, Chidabhasa is unique to individual shariram because after all, it's a reflection which is formed in the manas or sukshma sharira. So everyone has a different RC or Chidabhasa. So the context that Lord Krishna brings about in the second shloka clearly states that the reference is to Chit and not to Chidabhasa because Chit alone pervades in all Shariras as one. Now the second point is about the word idam. So normally this is a pronoun indicative of an object which is closely placed in front of me. So you would think that idam would refer to a specific object. But in the Bhashyam, Adi Shankaracharya says idam iti sarva namna uktam. So it is a pronoun that is meant for all objects. So, and by bringing about this kind of a contradiction, he brings to the fore an interesting thing that you can use this pronoun idam or this to only something which is objective, something which is not you, something which is not Atma. In other words, all Anatma, for all Anatma, you can use the word idam. That's why he uses the word Sarvanamna Uktam. there is only one entity, which is, Swamiji funnily uses a modified English and says there is only one entity which cannot be idamified, or it is not idamable, and that is Atma, that is the core essence of each one of us, which is the subject. So therefore, Krishna actually wants to say idam kshetram, but he refers to specific kshetram, which is Shariram, which Madam already brought about, that because of our attachment to this portion of kshetram, he is focused on Shariram. Why the word, how the word kshetram came about, Madam has already described. Now I want you all to look at the bottom two rows. Now this is going to be the focus in the first and the second shloka. And in 2 slides, Madam Triveni will bring about, but just as a prelude, I wish to make a few statements, and with that, look at the understanding these 2 shlokas bring about. Before our exposure to Bhagavad Gita and Vedanta, we are clear that I am body-mind complex. There is no clue of Atma whatsoever. Then with some exposure, like this shloka does, there is a distinction being made through Atmanatma Viveka that there are 2 entities, Kshetram and Kshetrajna. So that is the step when I say I am body-mind complex and I have an Atma. Anatma Viveka is happening. Between these 2 shlokas, next further step is done by Bhagatyaga Lakshanam. That is, my components, which comprises of original consciousness, reflected consciousness, Sthula Sukshma Sharira. There is a Bhagatyaga Lakshana that is brought about to show the substratum for everything of the original consciousness or Atma Tattvam. And at this state, I am able to say that I know that I am body-mind complex and I have an Atma, but the truth that I have realized now is I am actually Atma with an incidental body-mind complex. So that is the next step at which the Tvam Padartha Lakshartha, or the true essence of Jiva, or each one of us through Bhagatyaga Lakshana, has been shown to be one of Atma Tattvam. Then the understanding that these 2 shlokas take us further is, I know that I am of the nature of Atma with an incidental body-mind complex. But the truth is that I also know now that this Atma Tattvam is the same as one singular Advitiya Eka Kevala reality in not just my Shariram, but in all the Sharirams. So with this, the next big jump that has happened is one of Jivatma, paramatma, aikyam. So these are the 4 steps that happen, and which is nicely brought about by the next speaker, as we shall see it now. I'll invite Triveni Madam to speak on this. Over to you, Madam.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Kshetragnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. Kshetra kshetrayor gnanam yat tat gnanam matam mama. And know me as the kshetrajna in all the kshetras, O Bharata. The knowledge of kshetra and kshetrajna is deemed by me as true knowledge. Now Krishna goes to the next step of knowledge, which we have to take years to assimilate, even if we will take only a minute to listen to. What are the steps we have seen till now? First, Krishna said that he is the body, which is where we begin. The second step says that he is the body backed by another principle called consciousness. The third step says that in fact he is not the body with consciousness, but he is the consciousness with an incidental body or borrowed body. Swamiji says that Bhagavan has allowed us to use it. Now we are going to the fourth very important step. It is now known and hopefully assimilated that I am the consciousness behind this body. If I look upon myself as consciousness within my body, Rama is the consciousness in Rama Shariram, Krishna is the Dehi in Krishna Shariram. In fact, each one of us is nothing but the consciousness in the respective body. Now the question is, how many consciousnesses are there? As many bodies are there, so many consciousnesses also must be there. This will be our general conclusion. This is the conclusion of certain philosophers like Sankhya philosophers who say each body has one Atma. And therefore, as many bodies are there, so many Atmas are there. Here what Lord Krishna says is that the container bodies are many, but the consciousness within it is the same in everyone. The bodies are many, but the Dehi, the kshetrajna, the Atma, the consciousness is the same in everyone. And not only is the consciousness in every body, we should also know that consciousness is there in between two bodies also. The only thing is that consciousness is recognizable in the body because life is manifest. Now, Vedanta says that consciousness pervades everywhere. And therefore, there is only one all-pervading consciousness which is manifest in some places and which is unmanifest in some other places. Manifest or unmanifest, the consciousness is sarvagataha. This is the challenge of science also. What is consciousness and where is consciousness? Vedanta gives the answer. Consciousness is different from matter and pervades all over. Matter is only a medium for the expression of consciousness. When matter goes away, consciousness does not die, but its expression dies. Then the next step to understand is this verse. Even though this consciousness is all pervading, it is known by two different names. When the consciousness is looked from the standpoint of a single individual body, it is called Jivatma. Whereas the very same consciousness looked from the standpoint of all the bodies, otherwise called the samashti, the total, the very same Atma is called paramatma. So, from the microcosmic angle, consciousness is called Jivatma. Yashti Drishtya Jivatma. From the macrocosmic angle, Samashti Drishtya, it is Paramatma. And suppose you negate the microcosm and macrocosm, negate Vyashti and Samashti, it is neither Jivatma nor Paramatma. Then what is it? It is Atma. Therefore, consciousness is Atma. The adjective jiva is looking at consciousness from individual angle. The adjective parama is given looking at it from the total angle. Therefore, jivatma is atma, paramatma is atma. Both are essentially one and the same. This recognition is called Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam, which Dr. Sundar was talking about. So, what is my knowledge now? I am the Atma. When I, the consciousness, am functioning through an individual body, I am called a jiva, and the very same I, the consciousness manifesting through the whole creation, I am called the paramatma. And when I forget the body and forget the world also, neither jivatma nor paramatma, but atma. So this is called jivatma paramatma aikya gnanam. And the example we generally give in the Shastra is like seeing the essential oneness of the wave and the ocean. And in this verse, Krishna is revealing this fact, and therefore this verse is called a Mahavakya Shloka, a very important verse. And Shankaracharya has written a very elaborate commentary running to pages. Now in the verse, Krishna says, and asks Arjuna to carefully understand, assimilate. Kshetrajna mam vidhi. Kshetrajna means Jivatma, that is the consciousness obtaining in one body, and mam vidhi. Krishna says mam means me. Here the word me means the Paramatma. Therefore, Jivatmanam Paramatmavat Paramatvat Vena Vidhi. May you know Kshetrajnat Jivatma as Krishna Paramatma, you know the kshetrajna Jivatma as Krishna Paramatma. The kshetrajna Jivatma body is different, Krishna Paramatma's body is different, containers are different, but the content, consciousness is one and the same. Therefore, Krishna says, kshetragnam mam vidhi, know me to be Paramatma, who is sarva kshetreshu bharata, which is the consciousness in all the other bodies. And if I look at myself and yourself as consciousness, but when I come to the experiencer consciousness, I can say I am you and you are me. Saham aham asmi and aham saha asmi. That is a well-known Soham mantra. Soham aham saha. That is why it got the name Hamsa mantra. Hamsa means aham saha. I am that Paramatma. I am Brahmasmi is the revelation. And then Krishna says this knowledge is a very useful knowledge, and therefore this is the real knowledge to be acquired by all people. Krishna says, kshetra kshetrayoho gnanam, this knowledge regarding the kshetra and kshetrajna, tat gnanam, that alone is the real knowledge. In Mundakopanishad, this knowledge is called paravidya, and all other types of knowledge are called aparavidya. Now the question will be, how do you see that this knowledge will make or bring about a quality change in life? How does it change my life? According to Vedanta, this knowledge alone will give security. Other than this knowledge, if you think that there are other sources of security, Vedanta does not want to contradict you. Vedanta tells, try, just go and have a merry-go-round, either through money or status or position or possession or relationship. Try all of them, and then when you know and you're convinced that none of them will give you real security, then you come to Vedanta. In fact, Vedanta also does not give security. It reveals the fact that you do not require any security from outside. In your real nature, you are ever secure. Therefore, Vedanta does not give security. It removes the sense of insecurity. Therefore, Krishna says, kshetra kshetrajnayoho gnanam. This knowledge between the kshetra and the knowledge of the kshetra and kshetrajna is the real knowledge. And this is called Atmajnanam. Dhanyavadaha.
Thank you, madam. These two slides are so important, and you have explained all the steps so well, just for emphasis, for me to remember for myself and for those who are listening. So first step, I know that I am body and mind. So that is what is referred to as ajnanam in this slide. And then the first sloka brings about a distinction that actually there are two entities, kshetram and kshetrajna, atma and anatma. So this step is atma, anatma, viveka that is happening. And then I say, I know that I am atma, I am body-mind complex and I have an atma. But the truth is that I am atma and I have an incidental body. So at this point, what is happening is from Atma and Atma Viveka, we are shifting gradually to Bhagatyaga Lakshana. We are holding on to that which matters, that which is the substratum of everything, and giving less importance to what is just a name and form, which doesn't have an existence of its own. And then the next step is, it is true that I am Atma with an incidental body, but the truth is that I am the same Atma which is there in all the bodies. That is the next jump that is happening. And that brings in gradually to the final message, which is that of a singularity of reality, the fabric of this existence. Depending upon the coverings, it might appear as Jiva Swarupam or Ishvara Swarupam, but the truth is, Atman alone is. So I know that I am the Atma in all the Sharirams, but the truth is that I as Atma alone am. Everything else is as good as not there because it has a dependent existence. So this is this gradual progression of understanding that these two verses bring about. And Pujya Swamiji says that this is the Mahavakya in the Bhagavad Gita. Favorite shloka among many, including our own T.H. Sir. Just a few things Madam said about the Bhashyam. So Bhashyam by Pujya Swamiji ran into some 20 classes, and the transcripts run over 200 pages. Would cover many books on the whole Bhagavad Gita itself. If you recall, we had done a 20 class series on the entire Bhagavad Gita as a 20-week course. So Swamiji has spoken for 20 hours on this one shloka explaining Shankara Bhashyam. So because of this part of the Shankara Bhashyam as a specific name is kshetrajna Bhashyam or Mahavakya Bhashyam. Very briefly, Adi Shankaracharya takes us through a kind of a debate between Purva Pakshi, and he refutes the Purva Pakshi. So the Purva Pakshi here is a Bhedavadi. He says that there cannot be Jivatma, Paramatma, aikyam, there is Bheda. And Adi Shankaracharya refutes a Bhedavadi or Siddhantin or Advaitin to say that no, actually there is no Bheda, there is aikyam. So in the Bhashyam, it is brought out as 3 levels of objections by the Purva Pakshi to the fact that there is aikyam between Jivatma and Paramatma. The first level of objection is Jivatma, the Purva Pakshi is telling the scriptures themselves declare that Jivatma has samsara, Paramatma doesn't have. So how can there be Bheda? And his arguments is based on 3 levels: Shruti, Yukti, and Anubhava. Shruti, the Gita itself starts with the fact that the Jiva has Bhavaroga, he is suffering from Raga, Shoka, and Moha. And Paramatma doesn't have, so how can you say there is aikyam? And Yukti is laws of karma apply. Punya, Papa, Punarapi Jananam, all that apply for the Jivatma, not for the Paramatma. So how can there be aikyam? And Anubhava is all of us go through sorrowful experiences. I am suffering with samsara. Paramatma doesn't have. So how can there be aikyam? So this is the objection level 1 by the Purva Pakshi. And the refutation by Adi Shankaracharya is no, both are samsara rahita. Why? Because this samsara that you are talking about is kalpitam, it is adhyastam, it is mithya, rajju sarpatvad. So in the Rajju Sarpa example, the snake is actually kalpitam, it's not there. This rope alone is. The moment you realize there is no existentiality of the snake at all. So that is the refutation for the first level objection. Then the Purva Pakshi says, okay, I agree that there is no samsara, but you would agree that Jivatma has ajnana, is unaware of his status as infinite, all-pervading entity. Paramatma is aware. So therefore, there is Bheda. And for this, Adi Shankaracharya refutes by putting out 2 points, that that ajnanam belongs to the instrument, the antakaranam, bahyakaranam. And another important thing which we derive from the 2 fundamental laws of Vedanta, which T.H. Sir brings about so often, that all whatever we experience is anatma, all attributes belong to the anatma. So in a similar way, ajnanam is an experienced attribute, so it cannot belong to the knower. And Adi Shankaracharya establishes that both are ajnana rahita, so there is no bheda. Then without any way out, the Purva Pakshi comes with this argument relating to these 2 verses which we have just now studied, and says that you are saying yourself that etad yaha veti, so that who knows the kshetram is kshetrajna, and the kshetra you say that has samsara, kshetrajna doesn't have. But then because kshetrajna is the one who knows the kshetram, he is having the samsara anubhava of the kshetram, whereas Ishvara is free from that anubhava also. And Adi Shankaracharya refutes by saying that when you say jiva, actually there are 3 components, of which the reflected consciousness and the mind are the changing components which have the anubhava. But we are not talking about them as being equivalent to Paramatma. There is an unchanging component which is the original consciousness. he's telling the Purva Pakshi, you have to learn how to do Bhagatyaga Lakshana. You have to identify with that unchanging original consciousness, which does not have the Anubhava because it is Asangha. So with this briefly described elaborate thing in the Kshetrajna Bhashyam, Adi Shankaracharya refutes the objections at 3 levels by Purva Pakshi for Bheda or lack of aikyam and establishes the Jivatma Paramatma aikyam. We now move to the next verse. Over to you, Smita Pai madam.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The verse goes like this. Tatkshetram yaccha yadrikcha yadvikari yatascha yat sachayo yat prabhavascha tatsamasena me shrunu. The literal meaning is what that field is, of what nature it is, what are its modifications, whence it is, and also who he is, and what his powers are. These hear from me in brief, Lord Krishna says. In the beginning of the 13th chapter, Arjuna asked for clarification of 6 technical words used in scriptures, that is Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetram, Kshetrajna, Jnanam, and Neyam. Of these terms, Lord Krishna has taken 2 terminologies, Kshetram and Kshetrajna, which starts from verse number 2 onwards and continues up to verse number 7. First, he defined the 2 words, Kshetram and Kshetrajna. Kshetram means physical body, which represents any experienced object in the creation. Lord Krishna defined Kshetram as a body, and the body represents any experienced object in the creation. And then he defined Kshetrajna as the experiencer subject. In short, I am Kshetrajna, and whatever I experience is Kshetram. After having defined Kshetram and Kshetrajna, now Lord Krishna wants to give a simple elaboration of these 2 words. Now, coming to the beginning of the beginning words of this verse, Tat kshetram yacha yadrikcha means what is kshetram? What is the nature of kshetram? The objective universe, kshetram. What is that part of the kshetram which is the effect, and what is that part of the kshetram which is called the cause? And from which we get a corollary that all the causes and effect comes under kshetram. The next word, yadvikari yat. What are the effects born out of various causes? Yadvikari refers to karanam. Yatascha yat refers to the karyam. One refers to the cause and the other refers to the effect. The idea is the whole objective universe consists of cause and effect chain only. If you take an individual, the children are effect and the parents are the cause, and the parents themselves are the effect and their parents are the cause. All the causes and effect, the entire karya karana prapancha comes under kshetram, from which we get a very important corollary which Lord Krishna does not mention, but we have to note aside, that is, if cause and effect comes under kshetram, Kshetrajna, the conscious principle, should be other than cause and effect. That kshetram is karya karana vilakshanam is an indirect hint that Krishna is giving here. Therefore, yatvikari, what are the effects? Yatascha yat, what are the causes from which these effects come? In the second line, saha cha yaha saha. Here, saha means kshetrajna. Earlier, Lord Krishna had given the definition of kshetrajna, and from hereafter, he gives an explanation of the definition. And not only Lord Krishna elaborates on kshetrajna, he also talks about the prabhava of kshetrajna. That is, prabhava means glory, vibhutihi and mahima is also called as prabhavaha. In the following verses, Lord Krishna elaborates the glories of Kshetrajna. He asks Arjuna to learn very, very carefully. The reason has been given in the previous verse, that is, Kshetrajnyor Jnanam, Yat Jnanam Matam Mama. The knowledge of these 2 alone is real knowledge. That is a liberating knowledge. This knowledge alone is worthwhile, and therefore listen carefully. Tatsamasena, briefly, I am going to mention. Shrunu, listen carefully. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. So after those two profound verses, Adi Shankaracharya, sorry, Lord Krishna is now elaborating on this subject matter in these subsequent verses. And he makes 4 points with regards to kshetram, which he wishes to discuss. What is kshetram, its nature, causes, and the effects. And who is kshetrajna, and what are his glories that he wishes to tell. The madam explained about this last word in this shloka, shrunu. So Swamiji explains that Lord Krishna asks all of us students not to passively listen, but to actively listen to this discussion that is happening here, because the subject matter is very profound. As madam mentioned, the last line or the second, third and fourth quarters of the previous shloka, yah tat jnanam matam mama. So Lord Krishna said that this alone is real knowledge. So superficially one may feel, is this professing a particular cult by saying that this alone is true knowledge? Why is so much emphasis that this alone is real knowledge? Why is this an important knowledge? And Swamiji explains that earlier I have been a poor businessman, and I had beggarliness, emotional beggarliness. Then I put in a lot of hard work. I became a rich businessman, but my emotional beggarliness continued. You can take it intellectually. Earlier, I didn't have a good understanding about mathematics or medicine or surgery, and I had emotional beggarliness. Now I have put in a lot of work, and I have got very good knowledge about mathematics, medicine, surgery. I teach. I'm able to operate well, but my emotional beggarliness has continued. So this is that transformational change that these two shlokas, the Tatparyam of the Bhagavad Gita, Advaita Vedanta, is going to bring in a change in the quality of our lives. It is not talking about the possession, about my intellectual prowess, but how satisfied am I having lasting happiness, peace with whatever life I have. So that transformational change is being offered in this teaching. And therefore, Lord Krishna says, Shrunu, pay attention, listen carefully, don't take this teaching for granted. Sweta madam shall also present this next verse, which is a further elaboration on kshetrajna. Over to you, madam.
Thank you, Dr. Sonia. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Having given the introduction, now Lord Krishna, before he elaborates, he uses one more verse to glorify the topic. The verse goes like this: Rushibir Bahuda Gitam Chandobir Vividai Pratak Brahma Sutra Padaschaiva Hetumadbir Vinishchitaihi. The great sages have sung the truth about the field and the knower of the field in manifold ways. It has been stated in various Vedic hymns and especially revealed in the Brahma Sutra with sound logic and conclusive evidence. This topic of kshetram and kshetrajna is so important that all the scriptural texts have talked about this. Because kshetram includes the entire material universe, kshetrajnam is consciousness. Therefore, Lord Krishna says, Rishibhi Gitam, all the rishis have, through their scriptural work, have talked about or sung about only this topic, kshetrajna viveka jnanam. And not only they talked about Vividehi Chandobihi, all the Vedic mantras, Chandaha, Mantraha, through the various Vedic mantras, also only this subject matter has been dealt with. Therefore, Chandobihi Vividehi Pratak Idam. the various lokas, astronomy, atomic science, anatomy, physiology, various subdivisions of those sciences, psychology deal with kshetram only. Therefore, all the Vedas have talked about it how distinctly, pratak. That pratak is important because science has not been able to understand the relationship between matter and consciousness. So, whether consciousness is distinct from matter, is it identical with matter? Is it part of the matter? Is it a temporary phenomenon? Still, consciousness matter relationship is a mystery for all branches of science. Whereas Vedanta has distinguished matter and consciousness, and they have distinctly talked about this. Pruthak means distinctly. What is this distinction? Consciousness Satyam, matter Mithya. I am the conscious Satyam. This is important. Consciousness is the reality, matter is Mithya, the unreal principle. And who am I? I am the consciousness principle. This has been talked about in the Vedas. Not only has this been dealt with in the Vedas, Brahma Sutra Padaischaiva. Brahma Sutra is a literature written by Vyasacharya in which all the Upanishads have been logically analyzed. Brahma Sutra is a logical analysis of the Upanishadic portion of Vedas. The Upanishadic portion of the Veda is called Veda Anta portion. Therefore, Brahma Sutra has another name called Vedanga Sutrani. Since it has been done by Vyasacharya, it is called Vyasa Sutrani. They are called Sutram because they are in the form of brief capsule statements called aphorisms. So Sutram means aphorisms. One of the Sutram is a Atato Brahma Jignasa. Through these sutras, Vyasacharya logically analyzes the Upanishadic teachings, whether consciousness is part of matter, different from matter, or product of matter. Because of different systems of philosophy presents different things. Nyaya Shastra says consciousness is a property of matter. Sankhya philosophers says that consciousness is a distinct entity from matter. Thus, there are several views. Vyasacharya analyzes all of them and establishes Vedantic conclusion. Therefore, Lord Krishna says that this is not an ordinary topic. This is a very, very significant topic. Therefore, Brahma Sutra Padaihi, through the words of Brahma Sutra, and what type of Brahma Sutra they are? Hetu Madbihi, which are full of reasoning, logical analysis of various views, and Vinishchitaihi, which is conclusive and well ascertained, logically established. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam, for a nice presentation of these two shlokas, and a special thanks to you for agreeing to present this verse at a very short notice. So this is glorifying this kshetra kshetrajnayoho jnanam. It is glorifying the secret about the kshetrajna, the tatparyam of the Bhagavad Gita, Advaita Vedanta. And we can see that this glory is sung by the rishis. It is mentioned in all the layers of the scriptural literature that we see. So why is there so much of glorification? We already saw that all other knowledge can make me successful, but this knowledge has the potential of transforming me, changing the way each one of us think brick by brick in our mind. One need not then go around with an emotional begging bowl. In fact, instead of asking, give me love, one will then be filled in his heart with so much love that you can distribute it to everybody around you, whether they like you or not. That is the capacity that this knowledge has. So I might be successful in outer world, but if there is a need for a lasting peace, happiness, this can come through only this knowledge. That is why there is this kind of a praise that is shown in the shloka. So an interesting discussion in the Bhashyam is about which Brahma Sutra is being talked about in the shloka. This is because in Brahma Sutra by Vyasacharya analyzes shlokas from the Bhagavad Gita itself. So that chronologically shows that the Bhagavad Gita predated, or Bhagavad Gita was written first and the Brahma Sutra came later. So then in this shloka, when Krishna says Brahma Sutra, what is he referring to? So Adi Shankaracharya therefore does not make a reference to Brahma Sutra by Vyasacharya, and the analysis or the understanding there is any pitti or a loaded mantra or a shruti, vakya, shloka, which brings about the tatparyam of the Mahavakyas, Aikya Vichara, is like a sutra vakya. And this verse is referring to those kind of vakyas and not Brahma Sutra, although some Acharya says that it is a reference to Brahma Sutra. With that interesting bit, we go to the next and the last shloka for today. I invite Dr. Deepak to please present this verse.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namah. From this verse, the 5th verse of the 13th chapter, Lord Krishna elaborates on the topic of kshetram, namely the objective universe. To explain the elements of the objective universe, Vyasacharya borrows from the Sankhya philosophy and categorizes the universe into 24 categories or tattvas in the order of their creation. महाभूतान्यहङ्कारः बुद्धिरव्यक्तमेव च इन्द्रियाणि दशैकं च पञ्चेन्द्रियगोचराः. Mahabhutani, the 5 subtle elements, Ahankara, the cosmic ego, Mahat, the cosmic intellect, Avyaktam Evacha, and the Prakriti, Cha Dasha Indriyani, the 10 sense organs, Ekam Cha, the mind, Cha Panchendriya Gocharaha, and the 5 gross elements. These are in part the elements of kshetram with its modifications. These categories have evolved over 4 stages with gradually increasing number of tattvas. Next slide, please, sir. The first basic matter principle is called Prakriti. Prakriti is the first basic matter in the potential form. It is also the beginningless principle. Swami Paramathananda ji compares this stage in terms of physics to the conditions just before the popular Big Bang theory. From Prakriti, there is a partial evolution to the stage of Mahat. And Mahat signifies the cosmic intellect. And the next category is Ahankara, the cosmic ego. Next slide, sir. In the next stage, from Ahankara, 16 tattvas emerge. Number 1, Manaha or the cosmic mind. Number 2, the Dasha Indriyani, comprising 5 Jnanendriyas and 5 Karmendriyas. And then the 5 Tanmatras or the subtle elements, comprising Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa and Gandha. We have until now completed 19 categories in total. In the last stage, that is the 4th stage, from the Tanmatras, the 5 gross elements, the Pancha Mahabhutas, Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Prithvi and Apa, evolve, thus completing the 24 tattvas. Now these 24 tattvas do not remain changeless. They interact among each other, generating various vikaras of the kshetra, which is the meaning of yadvikari yatascha yat in the 4th verse. Lord Krishna now proceeds to explain the products or vikaras of kshetram in the next verse. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak, for an elaborate chart to make us understand the evolution of the 24 tattvas as per the Sankhya philosophy, which is adapted here in for discussion in Vedanta too. So you can see here that the Purusha is set aside, but because Purusha is Karya Karana Vilakshana, Karya Karana are in the domain of matter, and that's where the 24 tattvams lie. So Deepak mentioned 4 stages. I'd like to draw your attention to that reference we made earlier in the beginning to the 7th chapter, where also the cosmic evolution was discussed. Bhinna prakriti ashtadha, the eightfold stage was described. So there you see the 3 first stages which is being described here are combined to mention as the first stage of Bhinna prakriti ashtadha, which you can see on the right side, comprises of 1 plus 7, the 8 amshas or the 8 tattvas here. In the Bhashyam, there is a categorization of these 24 based on whether they are karanam, causes, or whether they are karyam, products, or whether they are both karanam and karyam. That is, for one stage they are the cause and the other stage they are the product, and which is put up there. And pure karanam is avyaktam, karana karyam is buddhi, ahankara, and mahabhutani, and karyam alone or vikriti is the remaining in that list. So we started with Lord Krishna stating idam kshareeram, specific reference to kshareeram about kshetram. Now commentators say that now in this shloka that kshetram is being now thrown open, the door is being opened to consider not just the shariram, but the entire anatma as being kshetram. We saw earlier that reference to shariram was because we are very much attached to it. But when this shloka comes, there are some commentators who point it out that the shariram itself has the 24 tattvams. So it itself is representative of the whole kshetram. Because when you say avyakta, it is similar to the karana sharira. And when you say mahat and then the components of sukshma sharira, they are part of the 24 tattvams. And of course, finally, the pancha indriya gochara refers to the mahabhutas. So therefore, the shariram is representative of the entire spectrum of kshetram. So this and the next shloka, which shall come in the next class, are presented together. But we are doing 5 shlokas per class. So the next part, which is closely associated with this shloka, will be dealt with in the next class. I wish to thank sir for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, dear speakers and Dr. Sundar, for so clearly and elaborately bringing out the essence of these powerful shlokas. These are some of the most exalted verses in the Bhagavad Gita, which speak about Jivatma, Paramatma, Aikyam, the core teaching of Advaita. Our body is a punya kshetram in which dwells the pure eternal Atma, which is the fountain of peace, security, and happiness. Let us always remember this in our day-to-day transactions so we remove our emotional beggarliness, as mentioned by Dr. Sundar. With this, we come to the end of today's class and we continue our study of the Atma Bodha on 28th March with session 16. And we're studying the same thing in the Atma Bodha also by Adi Shankaracharya. We conclude with our Shanti Patha. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Thank you.